Hello, mến chào tất cả quý vị anh chị em tái ngộ cùng quý anh chị em một lần nữa. Hôm nay là ngày 10 tháng 9 2024, 3 giờ 40 phút buổi chiều giờ California. Thì hôm nay thì có cái poll mới nhất của Tổng thống Donald Trump cũng như bà Phó Tổng thống Kamala Harris. Và hôm nay quý vị cũng nhớ là ngày hai người tranh luận đầu tiên của ông Trump và bà Kamala Harris. Đây là cuộc tranh luận rất cần thiết để những người dân để nhìn thấy khả năng và đường lối chính sách của hai người nếu đắc cử. Và cái tin nhắn mình cũng nhận từ Epoch Times là chín nơi ở trên lãnh thổ Nga đã bị quân đội Ukraine tấn công bằng máy bay không người lái. Đây là cái hình ảnh mà bên Ukraine thả bom vào những cái khu vực này, giống như là khu kỹ nghệ của bên Nga. Thì mình xin đọc cái này, rồi sau đó thì mình sẽ bỏ cái phần Việt ngữ của cái poll nói bằng tiếng Anh nhưng mà có phụ đề Việt ngữ. Ukraine đã bắn hàng loạt máy bay không người lái tấn công vào các khu vực phía Tây của Nga, bao gồm cả Moscow vào sáng sớm ngày 10 tháng 9, khiến ít nhất một người thiệt mạng và gây ra thiệt hại đáng kể về vật chất. Các quan chức Nga cho biết trong đêm, nỗ lực của chế độ Kiev nhằm thực hiện một cuộc tấn công khủng bố vào các mục tiêu ở Nga bằng cách sử dụng máy bay không người lái. Các hệ thống phòng không đang làm nhiệm vụ đã loại bỏ và đánh chặn 144 máy bay không người lái cánh cố định của Ukraine. Bộ Quốc phòng Nga cho biết trong một tuyên bố được hãng thông tấn nhà nước TASS đưa tin. Theo bộ này, một số lượng khác nhau máy bay không người lái của Ukraine đã bị đánh chặn ở chính khu vực phía Tây ở Nga, trong đó có 20 máy bay chỉ riêng ở khu vực Moscow. Tuy nhiên, ít nhất một số máy bay không người lái đang bay đến dường như đã đánh được hệ thống phòng không của Nga. Tại quận Ramenskoye của Moscow, các tòa nhà dân cư đã bị hư hại khiến một số căn hộ bốc cháy, TASS đưa tin. Theo thống đốc khu vực Andriy Vorovaro, ít nhất một cư dân đã thiệt mạng, một phụ nữ 46 tuổi và 3 người khác bị thương. Các thành viên của NATO, Romania, Latvia báo cáo máy bay không người lái của Nga xâm nhập không phận của họ. Lực lượng Nga chiếm giữ ngôi làng gần trung tâm trung chuyển của quan trọng của Ukraine. Moscow tuyên bố ngày 9 tháng 9 2024, lực lượng Nga chiếm giữ ngôi làng gần trung tâm trung chuyển quan trọng của Ukraine. Nó bị trục trặc Internet nó bị chạy chậm nó bị trục trặc, nó chờ một tí.
Donald Trump is once again the favorite in the 2024 presidential race. He has a 52% chance of winning entering the debate tonight, according to the latest prediction market odds. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on the individual betting markets in every single state. We'll begin by filling in the solid states for either candidate. These are the states where either Trump or Harris have a better than 95% chance of winning. And starting off with the safe states for the vice president, Washington, Oregon, and California. The Pacific Coast Blue Wall is very likely to remain intact for a 9th consecutive cycle. We also have Hawaii, Colorado, and Illinois. The rest are all up here in the Northeast. East, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Harris is also almost certain certain to carry Maine's deep blue 1st District as well. While for Trump, he is going to win in Montana, in Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, down the Great Plains region, North and South Dakota, Nebraska's statewide race in the 1st and 3rd districts, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and across the South, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Finally, the coal states of West Virginia and Kentucky and Indiana, giving him 128 electoral votes, trailing Harris, who has 188 to her name right now.
We've got great news for seniors. The Social Security Administration has made a small burial fund available.
Next, we'll fill in the likely states where either candidate has an 80 to 95% chance of winning. So clearly, these states heavily favor Trump or Harris, but an upset is not out of the question. Starting with Harris. With Harris, her running mate Tim Walz's home state of Minnesota is likely to go blue again for what would be a record-extending 13th consecutive election cycle. Now, Joe Biden did carry Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and the markets now give his vice president a 92% chance of holding the state in November. Harris is also very likely to hold the state of New Mexico, 5 electoral votes. Biden carried New Mexico by 11 percentage points in the 2020 election, and again, we see Harris as the heavy favorite, with a 91% chance of winning per the latest odds. Back on our map, she is also favored to hold Nebraska's 2nd district. Democrats have an 81% chance right now of extracting an electoral vote out of deep red Nebraska. Joe Biden did win this district by more than 6 points in 2020, and it is rapidly left trending. Harris will also likely hold the Commonwealth of Virginia with its 13 electoral votes. It voted for Biden by double digits in 2020, and while the polls this cycle have shown a more competitive race than expected, the betting markets continue to strongly favor the VP, with an 86% chance of winning for Democrats in Virginia. Finally, up in New England, both New Hampshire and the statewide contest in Maine are likely for Harris as well. These are the only semi-competitive races in this deep blue Northeast region, but New Hampshire still voted for Biden by 7 points in 2020 and Maine by 9. And now Harris's odds sit at 83% in New Hampshire and 85% in Maine. She is on track to win them both by around 4 to 6 points in November. Before I continue on to the likely Trump states, only around 20% of you are actually subscribed. So please take a second to hit that free subscribe button below for more content like this leading up to Election Day. Now, the likely Trump states start in Alaska. Trump is almost certain to win in Alaska with a 93% chance of winning, just below the safe threshold. No Democrat has carried Alaska since 1964, but Trump's 10-point margin in 2020 was the narrowest for a Republican since 1968. As for the state of Ohio, 17 electoral votes, once a key bellwether state, now strongly Republican. Trump has a 92% chance of winning, according to the odds via Polymarket, and this comes after he carried the Buckeye State by 8 points in both 2020 and 2016. Moving down south to Florida now, the former president is heavily favored to keep it in the Republican column for a 4th straight election. 30 electoral votes, the 3rd most in the nation. The Sunshine State was for a long time synonymous with the term swing state, but like Ohio is now firmly Republican-leaning after Trump carried it by an even larger margin in 2020 than he did in 2016. And more recently in the 2022 midterms, Republicans, Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Marco Rubio, were both re-elected by more than 15 points each. Now, Polymarket currently has Trump with an 85% chance of winning right here. Back on our map, the slowly emerging battleground of Texas is also likely for Trump. 40 electoral votes, the second most of any state, Joe Biden did receive 46.5% of the vote in Texas in 2020, the most for a Democrat since 1976. But even as urban areas like Dallas and San Antonio have trended to the left over the last couple decades, the heavily Hispanic and right-trending Rio Grande Valley here in South Texas has quite simply dampened Democratic hopes of flipping Texas blue anytime soon. Polymarket now has Trump with an 87% chance of winning right now, so between Ohio and Florida, and together these four states do lift his electoral vote tally up to 218, just 8 votes shy of Harris at 226, although that margin will actually drop to just 7, as I almost forgot Maine's 2nd congressional dropped to just 7, as I almost forgot Maine's 2nd congressional district. It is also likely for Trump. The largest district by area east of the Mississippi River, it is ultra-rural and voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, and he has an 81% chance of winning right now. And so now we're left with these 7 key battleground states. Now these are the states that have been talked about the most all cycle long, and for good reason, as they were each decided by less than 3 points in 2020. And with the exception of Nevada, which voted blue twice, and North Carolina, that voted red in both elections, the other 5 states flipped from Trump in 2016 to Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Here in the 2024 cycle, neither Trump or Harris have a better than 65% chance of winning any one of them, so no lean states, just tilts in this update. Before we do get to the extremely competitive battleground states though, Kamala Harris holds a narrow electoral lead with 226 to Donald Trump's 219.
Every time I go to my mother-in-law's house, I never dare to use the bathroom. I have to wait for my husband to clean it before I can go in.
Going in order of most to least competitive, North Carolina tilts in favor of the former president. 16 electoral votes, it gained 1 following the census. Trump has a 63% chance of winning, according to Polymarket. Now, North Carolina has not elected a Democrat to federal office since Barack Obama in 2008, as he failed to hold it against Mitt Romney in 2012. The GOP has now won not only the last 3 presidential races, but also the last 5 Senate contests as well, each by less than 6 points. That has positioned North Carolina as an always competitive, yet consistently Republican-leaning state. Now here in 2024, Decision Desk HQ in the Hills polling average here has Trump leading by less than half a point, 0.4% based on 19 polls in total. That is 48.4% to 48% flat. And Trump has led in 5 of the last 6 polls, with the lone exception showing a tied race. Now, the Harris campaign has sent many signals that they believe North Carolina is in play, though given, of course, that it is truly the only possible flip opportunity for Democrats on the map, they're probably just hyping up their chances for show. The fundamentals remain strong for Republicans, and they do have a history of overperforming the polls on election day. As for the states of Georgia and Arizona across the Sun Belt, these were the 2 closest states in 2020. They were both decided by less than half a point in favor of Biden, completing their respective hard leftward shifts over the last decade. Now, Republicans had long dominated statewide elections in both states, but their 2 major metropolitan regions, Phoenix here in Arizona and Atlanta and Georgia have grown and diversified at a faster rate than pretty much anywhere else in the nation, lifting Democrats to victory not only here in the 2020 presidential race, but in several major down-ballot contests for Senate and for governor as well. Yet here in 2024, the polling between Biden and Trump did show Trump making gains among young and minority voters, key demographics in both states, and the top-line averages reflected those trends as Trump led Biden by 4 points in Georgia before the president dropped out, and then by 5.7%, almost 6 points here in Arizona. Now with Harris in the race, the polls are much more competitive, as she and Trump are tied in the latest Arizona average based on 25 polls, with both candidates pulling in 47.7% of support. And believe it or not, they are also exactly tied in Georgia based on 22 polls. Here they both sit at 48.4% in this latest average. Yet considering that the 2020 margins in both states were so close, and the national environment is expected to shift a couple points towards Trump since then, Polymarket does give Trump an edge in both states right now. Republicans have a 63% chance of flipping Arizona back into the GOP column, identical to their odds in North Carolina. And meanwhile, in Georgia, they have a 60% chance. That means that both states tilt in favor of the former president on our map, lifting Trump all the way up to 262 electoral votes, just 8 shy of the magic number that he needs to become just the second president to serve a non-consecutive term in the White House. Now just 4 states remain, and our next 2 tilt in favor of Vice President Harris: Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes, and Michigan with 15 electoral votes. 2 of 3 states in this upper Rust Belt core trio, along with Pennsylvania, they each voted Democrat in every election from 1992 all the way up to 2016, as Trump flipped them all narrowly in that election by less than a point each. Flash forward to 2020, Biden returned them to the blue column, proving decisive, as had Trump held just one of the 3, he would still be serving a second term at this very moment. Now here in 2024, both Wisconsin and Michigan have trended positively for Harris since she became the Democratic nominee. She does lead by a little under 3 points in Wisconsin based on 28 polls, 2.8% to be exact, with 49.6% of the vote to 46.8%. She also leads over in Michigan by 1.5 points, with 48.6% ahead of Trump's 47.1%. As for the betting markets, over on Polymarket, they give her identical odds in both states at 56% each, which does make sense as well. The polls have been slightly better in Wisconsin. Michigan is a fundamentally bluer state. It did vote for Biden by 2.8% in 2020 compared to just 0.6% in Wisconsin. Together, these 2 states lift Harris's total up to 251 electoral votes now, 11 behind Trump in the race to 270, with just 2 states remaining: Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes and Nevada with 6. According to prediction markets, Trump is slightly favored in both, with a 54% chance in Nevada and then a 55% chance in Pennsylvania. Now that is key, as its 19 electoral votes are very, very likely to tip the election in either direction this November. And here in this case, you see that they are the difference between a Harris and Trump presidency. With Pennsylvania in his corner, the former president is projected to win 287 electoral votes. And without it, Harris would edge out a win with exactly 270. So yeah, there is a reason why so much news coverage is centered on Pennsylvania. Right now, it is the tipping point state. As always, you can let me know in the comments what you think of this map, as well as any other videos you would like to see in the future. Shout out to my channel members on screen here. Thank you so much